One door is closed when the moon is up. To the right one, Jah Jah so pray Rasta no need no cooking. One door is closed when the moon, and it's not Jah Jah with the love we heart will never be broken. One door is closed when the moon is open. To the right one, Jah Jah so pray Rasta no need no cooking. One door is closed when the moon, and it's not Jah Jah with the love. This one bread and life is stop picking up the pot. Big girlfriend left me true with my house. No dollar in a stop. Next time in the mouth. Big clear, big red, this smooth. How do you ring up when we drop the one? Big clear hunter, them discipline truck. Will you pray to the Father non-stop? Help me keep the healing up. Help me keep the healing up. This one door is closed, till the moon is open. To the right one, Jah Jah so pray, Rasta no need no cooking. One door is
G Mike.
Who that say who that when I don't say who that?
Who that to say that who that after you don't say that who that?
Hey,
Mr.
Greg, what's up?
Gregory, what's up?
I got your mic muted, Greg.
Oh yeah, your
There you
mic
go.
is muted, Greg.
There you
Yeah.
go. You can,
Good,
there you go
good
now.
evening. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir. I see Leonard Brackett boss in and boss out. There he goes. In and out as always. Are you there or are you not there?
Look like they're supposed to.
You got one puzzle look on your face.
You
Okay,
will see.
try.
I don't see him.
Yeah, I see him.
I don't see him. You know, keep on my thing, yeah.
They're right out there. They try to get on somehow. They do some kind of simmer to me. But
Yeah,
Brackett,
we're live. You know what it is.
holla at me.
We're live. We're live.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
Greg, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good evening. Good evening to all.
Just you had a wonderful week.
Yes, it was good. It was good. This week was my birthday week.
Okay.
Yeah, on the 26th, I had my birthday. I think that was Monday.
Interesting. Well, happy birthday to you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Happy birthday to you, sir.
You know, I can't really celebrate all month because if I start celebrating, it'd be like how you guys celebrate your national holidays. You know.
Well, you don't have to rub that in, but we do that in grand style. Personally,
you start on the first, and you never end until after the 21st, man. So I don't know.
but that's a reasonable celebration. I think more so than a birthday. I think you get one birthday the day you're born. After that, you mark time and you go by a calendar that really we've designed a calendar to mark time.
Yeah.
When in fact time just marches on anyway.
Yeah.
But we do have the seasons and whatnot, so we could separate them like that.
What is time? You know, I was looking at something recently that talked about in quantum physics, time may not even exist, and I still have to go and read it and try and understand it a little bit more. But
you know. That take that special kind of foreign weed. They're not local weed, no. I make you figure that out. Yeah. I don't know for that high grade stuff.
Yeah.
High grade stuff. Leonard Brackett.
You boy that again.
Yeah, boy, that he not boy. Well, we have to live with that, man. We have to put up with him, leave it. So Greg, did you trying to get this listen to the speeches at all? Or?
Yes, I did. I did listen to the Prime Minister's speech on National Independence Day, and also to the leader of the opposition National Independence Day speech. So
wonderful. Here comes trouble. I see Georgina out trying to get on. Keep him out if you could, boy.
No, I can't do that to me.
Keep on, leave it. Make her get some sense talk first. What's up, Georgie?
Good evening, guys. Good evening. Yes, good night.
I thought I was a perpetually welcome guest, but apparently there seem to be some footnotes that I am not aware of.
No, it's always good to see you.
I understand the Jews are late. So there you go again, see? But well,
I jumped
we
out.
yeah,
You're
back
back.
and
You're
forth.
back.
That
Yeah.
Why
might
am
be
I
I
in
see.
and out?
I might see why they mess with you. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, I see Brackett gone himself.
Yeah, he
Maybe,
was here a moment and then
yeah,
he
he was.
disappeared.
But we've been doing this for a few weeks now, and I think well, last week we took a break for the celebrations, you know, and
Mm.
as Gregory so crudely reminding us that we celebrate all month.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't got a problem with a good celebration. I celebrate anything. But of course, we're continuing the discourse with the end, hopefully, of being able to bridge the gap to some degree and to also get the diaspora to understand the need to unite, come together as a block, and speak with a reasonable voice, a voice of reason that we can assist in getting Belize on a more forward footing. Of course, the usual panel, as being myself, you, Gregory, you, George, and Mr.
Mr.
Brackett,
Brackett,
and of
who's
course,
coming
CY
in
is
and
our CY is in the background, making sure the controls are working and whatnot. I think, guys, that as we go along, we will pick up more participants. Certainly, more people will be tuning in. I think, though, and this might be for CY, we need a more user friendly link, if you will. People need to have that one, and the technology provides it now. Need to be able to click on and log on, as opposed to go through a whole rigmarole, if you understand what I'm saying.
connecting to the studio. Yeah, yeah, I understand.
So, and I don't know if maybe he could link all of our pages to the podcast, and then they go live to all of our respective Facebook pages. No, I know it goes to
Oh, okay,
CY's,
okay, okay.
you see, but
Yes, yes,
we can link it, um,
yes,
and then or we just have one running under the screen, one link that they can just click to, or at
yes.
least copy and paste or something like that, and go on to see the show. I've gotten a lot of people asking me, well, how do we see it?
Yes.
How do we get on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so just for user friendly, no?
Mm-hmm,
That's
mm-hmm.
it.
No, that makes sense. And what you said, if whenever I'm
I think the
on,
link
just
idea is a
live,
great idea.
yeah,
I think the link
if
idea in the bottom is a great idea.
yeah,
Go
or
great.
even if when I'm on, it goes directly to my Facebook page so that people could see I'm live streaming, and people that follows me could then just
Indeed, 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 and
get
make
on if
comments
they
and whatnot.
choose. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
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 well, I usually try to do that at least.
Okay,
But let me
yeah,
see.
okay,
I'm having
okay. We don't have to do it right now. I think it's a good
yeah,
thing to
yeah,
follow
yeah.
up and then try to establish so that we have that as part of the programming.
Indeed, a part of our objectives should be to make it better as we go
Yes,
along.
yes.
Certainly, user friendly, that a good thing, because, and we know that people um, naturally we're lazy, and if we have to go through a whole lot of things, forget to something, we tend to stop halfway and just go about with business, no?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if usually people could just click on or like you say in our Facebook pages, because when they're browsing and looking for what you might be saying today, or what your comment is on something else, they'll buck up on the link, and we can do that. George, you're gone. George seems to be having some difficulty. Um, Leonard seems to he gone back out again. See, why were they going in two people?
yeah, I'm having you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay. Sometimes when somebody click in and they think it's not right, it affect the whole thing. And I think this time it's George Marvitt that's doing it.
Eh,
Yeah.
well,
I don't know from where
anyway,
it's weird. Because he's the
well,
only one that
we can wait pandem, and
yeah, we do
we can go on with this. Me and Gregory, because I found that
now you got it, Mr. Brackett.
I don't there you go. He's on something else. Greg, the
Yeah.
first of
Okay,
all,
hold on.
the leader of the
Hold on.
oppositions speech was first, right? You got that covered? Greg, your mic is gone, is mute again. I'm seeing a mute for your mic, Greg. Go to the mic and see if you can unmute that. There you go. All right. You there, we know? Say it, make us see if I hear you. And I see your lip moving. You hearing me?
Mr. Greg.
Maybe now you mute.
I don't know what they call this man.
No, maybe mute the speaker now.
Okay. Can you hear me
now?
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hit one mute thing trying to unmute it, and
correct. I know it's
yeah.
Once
Okay.
you have to get kids around you, cause they could do it. They got it. We kind of just to try catch up most of the time, right? By the time we catch up, they're gone again.
Well, you had mentioned that the leader of the opposition had spoke first at the National Independence Day program, and that is customary, traditional, that the leader of the opposition speaks first and covers all his
complaints, if you will.
Yeah. I always we always do it, and it doesn't matter which party is in power. I always also wonder how appropriate it is and what purpose it serves, other than to just bring up some gripes that I don't think anybody at that particular event or even listening at home is really interested in. And I hope they would, over time, develop a better format to not spend the whole time of speaking to just do gripes, because there are some good things that's happening and some good things that has happened since our independence for Belize that we should all be cheered on to. There's some very, very telling things that is troubling and we need to fix, but we have had some good things in our independence in the 41 years, and we should probably be spending some time celebrating those as citizens, whether you are blue or red or green or whatever you are.
I hear you. I don't think, though, that you can expect the opposition to be clapping and giving kudos to the government. That is not their role. That and certainly it's not going to help their case. They're trying to get into government.
Yes.
So you'll always be rosy from the side of the government in power, of course.
Mm-hmm.
They will see everything on the good side.
Yes.
But I don't think you're correct when you say those at home aren't interested, because those at home who support the opposition want to hear all of that also. My question would be, is it the truth? Because that's more important than anything else. And we have a lot of programs that come along like this internationally, where you have the fact checkers, and that started with the presidential debates and whatnot. And there are people who do that, just check the facts. You said something, Bob, was this correct? Was this correct? Was this correct? And I think that's more important, that it be true than it be pleasant, because sometimes you have to get that in your face, a reminder of what you're doing wrong and what needs to be corrected. Now you might say, well, this is on occasion where we have the diplomatic corps, and you have people there that we try and impress and whatnot. But I think they'll understand that a vibrant opposition is necessary, in particular in a two-party system like the one we have. I don't know how you saw him as far as delivery. Do you think that he's a good speaker, and did he give a speech without looking at the negative impacts of it, or?
Well, I think in general he is a good presenter. I saw, my particular opinion of that particular presentation was that it was kind of stuffy. I don't think he seemed as relaxed and as lucid as he have normally been in other speeches that he has made, and I don't know what the reason for the tension was, but it was not, you know, it could be many things, but it was not as lucid, and I didn't get quite the same kind of comfort in his delivery of that speech. Like there was some tension going on.
Interesting. George, did you?
Well, you know, speaking in terms of the leader of the opposition, I believe that he did quite well in terms of pointing out some of the defaults of the system. I think that he was right on point to say that there are many good things about Belize, but this is not where we're headed. I think that him kind of pointing out what I see as the fault lines of corruption, of nepotism, of poverty, etc., I believe were right on target. I think where he failed was in relation to the other things that we would expect of a speech from the opposition, from the leader of the opposition. He needed to have been inspirational. He needed to have crafted his way forward in terms of where we need to be and how we need to get there.
Yeah.
I believe that he also needed to have rallied his troops. I believe that Shine was in an environment of great hostility. It was pointed out to me that a part of his speech was acknowledging his own wife, whom apparently was not mentioned. I don't see this as perhaps deliberate, but I believe that courtesy would dictate that if a gentleman arrives on the scene with his wife as a part of his entourage, then she needs to be acknowledged. So he was on hostile grounds. We do know that he's apparently embattled, and so there was nobody under the tent cheering for him. When he was all done, it seems to me that there was just a pitter-patter of applause, and that was not in relation to his delivery or the content of his delivery. I believe it was simple courtesy that he got that. What worries me about Shine is that the path that he's traveling is one that has him in isolation. And so if I was handling him, and if G. Mike was handling him, and if Leonard was handling him, and if Greg was handling him, and if CY was handling him, we would have said, I know that you're kind of extemporaneous. The guy is actually very brilliant. He's a smooth talking guy. He's actually, in my view, the best speaker in the House of Representatives. But I believe that when you go to an event like that, especially, you know, being extemporaneous is all right, but you have to have a structured speech, which is why I would give him, on a score of 5, I would give him 1 out of 5. And so that put him, if you are acquainted with the grading system of the Cambridge Examining Board, that would put him either at an F or a U. And F is a fail in A levels, and a U is unqualified. I would be gracious and not give him a U, but give him an F, and hoping for future times that he does what he does. In relation to the Prime Minister...
Wait, we're not going there yet. We're not going there yet. Right, Leonard, what were your impressions of the leader of the opposition's speech?
I don't want to take away anything from any of the previous commentators or members of the panel, but because I come from a different vantage point with a whole lot of other baggages, you know, that I'm carrying, I'm able to go deep down into these things and give definitive statements. And sometimes when I do make those definitive statements, people look at me and they say, well, how come I go around making statements like those when in fact I'm not even in Belize and I shouldn't even be knowing what I supposedly know? And that creates a conflict in terms of people hearing my statement and contextualizing what is it that I'm attempting to convey to them.
Leonard.
But let me be specific as regards to your question.
Yes.
The leader of the opposition, I would use Mr. Mybit grading system, and I would say I would give him probably a 2.5 on the same scale that Mr. Mybit portrayed. And the reason why is, as he also indicated, he did some, he mentioned or brought up some salient points that needed to be touched on, because we got to all remember, this is a once in an occasion every year scenario. The problem was that he was speaking not only just to local Belizean, he was speaking to the diplomatic corps and to the world at large. So he needed to have been more measured in his delivery, be more specific as regards to a positive message rather than just a tear down message or a negative. Because remember, these diplomats also have come from political backgrounds themselves, and they understand how these things operate when it comes to the opposition being put in the limelight. And again, like Mr. Mybit mentioned, in a hostile environment where he doesn't have many of his own supporters there to hear and her about his positive delivery or whatever it is that he was delivering. The problem is that he needed, and I hope that in the future, this particular day is a day of reverence. Yes, we have to touch on some of the critical things that needs to be spoken of that haven't been spoken about in the House, which is where really that kind of process should occur. But we need to take seriously what the Independence Day celebration and activities are all about, and that is to celebrate our independence. It's a serious issue. It's not a cavalier process or a gotcha scenario where people can just come up and say, well, the Trump, or in other words, Mr. Barrow give a better delivery or a better speech than Mr. Briceño, which is always going to be the case, regardless of what point they're addressing. The gentleman just brings something else to the table that Mr. Briceño does not have. Mr. Briceño have the experience and the knowledge and the support of the governing people on his behalf, his cadre. Mr. Shine, as Mr. Mybit also indicated, didn't have anybody there from his party that could have, give him any kind of moral support while he was doing his delivery. He was looking at faces that were probably indicating to him that, you're out of place, you're out of timing, and this is not the place for that. And therefore, it could have distracted him.
I don't know that there's a set template for how this should be run as far as the speeches go, what should be said. In fact, decorum went out the window several administrations ago.
Yes.
But
yes.
Dean Barrow certainly wasn't kind in his speeches there. And even before him, a couple of the other leaders, they do it. They use it. I think Shine's biggest problem was, and George might have touched on it a bit, was the I factor. It wasn't his team that was moving out forward, it was him. He wanted to be the next prime minister. That's what he was looking forward. Not the UDP even being the next government. He wants to be the next prime minister. As far as him being the best speaker in the House, that certainly is not hard to do and to be, because we don't have, I've always said, I don't know how many of these politicians get elected when they can't damn speak. So they're not like you're going to say, oh, you could come and convince me. And certainly most of the time at the $50 that does the convincing and not the individual and what they represent. No. So I think as far as the Shine, he's eloquent. He's smarter than I gave him credit for initially when he came to Belize and decided he wanted to be in there. I didn't expect much from him in that regard. I think if he can get off of that, he wears his ambition on his sleeve, like I suggested in another post. No, unless he can become a team player and reach for his troops to certainly he was in a hostile environment. but listen, the UDP are in
Take
the
the high
situation
ground.
that they're in, so there's nothing you can do about that. No.
He,
Make we look on the Prime
he
Minister's
could have,
speech.
Mr. Chief,
Yeah.
before I move on, he
Uh-huh.
could have taken the high ground and be positive and still
Yeah,
touch on those
and
specific points, but not derogate so much in a negative way towards the Prime Minister and the current administration.
yeah,
Well,
and that's
It would have
exactly
been a
my
much place. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead, Mr. I think Mr.
Gregory.
Gregory was trying to say something
Yeah.
else. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and that was my point. In that, I do believe he spent too much time just dwelling on the negative when there's, as I said, there was lots of opportunity to speak about Belize in a positive light for 41 years. And you know, I'm remembering back when actually someone disturbed the mic for Patrick Faber when he was
no.
delivering his
Yeah,
speech.
yeah.
So he
Yeah.
was in a hostile environment. Thank goodness
Mhm.
they maintained protocol and decency and didn't do anything like that in this turn. But you know, I do give my hats off to Mr. Barrow for standing up and doing what he does, because I do think he has potential in terms of public speaking and smarts in terms of making good presentation and probably what he needs to do is be able to round up the troops and get them to follow him in some convincing way. And as you've been saying, it's much of it is about him. And maybe I always think politicians in general, sorry, just 1 second, in general has big egos, and most of the time they don't give space to anyone. But the successful ones learn that they must share whatever the prize is.
Well, you say he has potential.
Oh,
Is
sorry.
he? Because both George and Leonard have given him failing marks as far as his ability to lead. Does he have the ability to lead?
Well, I think he does if he comes to some realization that you can't you when you're a leader, it's because everybody else is behind you, right?
Obviously,
Uh,
yeah.
he has
George,
what it takes. He has what it takes to be a good leader, but he needs guidance and counseling. And if he doesn't get those,
will he accept it?
that's part of the problem.
Yeah, because
My last comments in the media about the gentleman's situation is that he shares a gene pool with three other people that are of the same characteristics, you know. And I don't know if it's because of genetics, but I would doubt that, because as Mr. Gregory just intimated, politicians are a breed of animal that, you know, I mean, in order for you to be a politician, you must bring to the table a level of ambition. And in order to want to be a leader, you have to raise that level of ambition to a much higher level, to the point of selfishness.
but
But when you're
certainly,
talking about the country's prerogative, self has to go out the window, and the great leaders that govern on behalf of their country are the people who walk lightly and carry a big stick.
yeah, you can have ego and you can have confidence and all of that, but you need that touch of humility.
Yes,
You
Right.
said
yes.
humility is the sweet root from which all other virtues shoot.
Or at least you have to recognize it's the spring of everything. You know,
Right,
you might not
right.
be you have it deep down, but you have to recognize that unless you could prop up the rest of the troops along with you, they're
It's
not
a
going to be
lost cause. It's a
they're not
lost.
going to be standing
Yeah.
there with you.
Talking
George,
about the troops, but right now on that point on the troops, sir, before we take off, sorry for delaying the process.
no,
and
apologize so
interjecting.
much, man. No,
On the troops,
Yeah.
the
Right,
UDP right now has a bigger problem than just leadership issues.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
unless they can corral
that's
party
another
members
topic.
and the coalition, unless they can put back that coalition, there's no way that they will become the government of the country in the near future.
I hear you.
Without that
George,
coalition, there's no 16 plus seats.
George.
Yeah, I just wanted to go to the point that G. Mike made in terms of leadership, and this would be in the context of his speech. I believe that I'm trying to recall this, that you know, there's scandals when you're on the political stage, and people would say, well, you say things out of context, you say things that are unwise, and people are just remind you that, remember, the camera is always on you.
Mhm.
I remember this movie by Chris Rock, President, I think it's called.
Oh yeah,
All right. And
yeah.
I'm saying this to say that when you get an opportunity, and I think Leonard kind of pointed to it, that this is a once in a year event.
Mhm.
And so when you're on that stage, you have to display leadership.
Right.
I believe,
Mhm.
to Mr. Price's credit, whether he's giving a speech at a high school, a primary school, I am from the fisheries sector, so I saw him speaking to the cooperatives. Whenever he gives a speech, he leaves you with a message.
Mhm.
Belize is strong. Belize is striving for independence.
Mhm.
Our best days are ahead of us.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I did not see that in Shine. So if you're looking for a speech that reflects leadership, there was no vision that he philosophically um, dealt with, and certainly in the context of his speech. So this is constructive in the sense that relative to Mr. Briceño, but we are not there yet. I don't think that it's a major stroke against Shine, but for future references,
Yes,
if he's still there,
yes,
then
yes.
we would like to see, as Mike is saying, that you need the leadership, because it's
Well,
not just that you're waiting for your turn to be prime minister, but you have to convince people in terms
question,
of your delivery that you're
Oh, yeah, and
worthy.
get the prime minister if you can't get the
question,
sorry.
question. Did he write the speech himself or did somebody write it for him? What do you
Doesn't
think?
matter. Doesn't matter.
Well, it,
Um,
it matters in that it's either his thoughts or somebody else's thoughts that
well,
he's presenting.
you know, when a person gets up and gives a speech, to me, it's ownership. They own it,
Right.
whether someone writes it for them or not. And
Mhm.
so I fault him for it, whether he wrote it or not. If he didn't, if he wrote it himself, then he definitely should go consult some speech writing
Well,
professionals to help him out.
so you would not think it would have been his father who wrote it for him then,
No,
because
I don't think
certainly
so. No, I
you would
don't
not
He
think so.
expect
definitely
that.
had some input,
Yeah, yeah,
and
but
the
I don't
input
think
was
it's
not input of wisdom or knowledge
yeah,
or clarity in political understanding.
yeah.
All right, make we move on, Judge. Your take on the Prime Minister's speech now, because you obviously
Um,
had a few views on that too. Go ahead.
yeah, G. Mike, I believe in terms of public speaking, the prime minister is coming into his own. I believe that prior to him assuming the prime ministership, the Enviro always sort of pick on him in the house and sort of castigated and made him look like a lightweight.
Made a fool of him most of the time.
Yes, but I think that Mr. Briceño is now coming into his own to the extent that you would note. I didn't see the entire speech, I have to confess, but I see him on the public stage, including that day,
Well, obviously it
where he
wasn't that
doesn't,
riveting then. If it
where,
was
where he
riveting,
doesn't, where he doesn't have any notes.
There's growth.
I didn't see any notes. Maybe he did, but if he did, it would have been maybe just a passing glance at the notes. So,
was there a teleprompter there maybe?
Well, maybe there was,
Because the way he
but
was looking, he was reading from something.
No, he was
Well,
reading.
he has to learn to do that
Yeah, yeah. He
Well,
was
well,
reading
I
since he
didn't
something.
goes
get that.
international as well.
I
So
didn't get that.
that
I,
don't
I
take none
think
from
that
him.
I think that he's comfortable enough with the subject that he's charged with to perhaps glance at whatever it is, a teleprompter or some notes, and to basically expand on those to the extent that he's comfortable. And you know, in public speaking, that if you are speaking and you are comfortable, your audience is also comfortable.
Right.
We have in Belize a Toastmaster club, and I was a part of that at some point. And my observation to government people is that anybody who is in senior management should take a course in public speaking or should look at Toastmasters as a vehicle to do that. I also believe that our politicians
Definitely.
also do that. When you look at Amir Mutley versus quite a few other people,
I think that's too much to ask for at this stage, though.
That's
I'm not putting him in that category, but he's
you're
getting
placing the
there.
bar kind of high there.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just
That
saying
lady
that
is exceptional, yeah.
I'm just saying that when you look at the standard that leaders in the Caribbean
International.
should be
Yes.
looking
Yes.
at. That's the
Yes.
gold standard.
To aspire
Yes.
for,
And I'm
yeah.
saying
Yes.
that I see Johnny kind of climbing that ladder.
You think?
I see
why?
him talking without notes.
Yeah.
Which
You're
means
He's
that
getting
he's
comfortable with
agreeable,
exercising power.
etc.
the
I-
blow
So-
up a little bit.
No. You know that I call it down the middle. Sometimes people say I don't like Johnny. It's not that I don't like him. I have to get the angel way due, and I think that the man is making strides. I think
you
that-
give him an angel too, all right? Usually a devil
No.
a corner.
That,
You really walk the line now, boy. That Green
No,
Party have to watch you.
no. In terms of his strengths, though, G Mike. On a serious note, I think that in terms of his strengths, he was able to deliver the high points of the service that his government is delivering.
You know,
And I believe he did well because he talked about bridges, he talked about economic project, he talked about jobs. And if you are not living where I live, you would know that there's a dark side to what Johnny is saying. When he talks about jobs, I would say you're brave. But if you have a shine boy that cannot articulate properly
well, no.
what the
because-
reality is, then Johnny Briceño gets away with all of these things. So,
well, this is it. This
That's
is it.
that's the point.
I
That's
was
the
saying
point.
to you
you know,
that what he has on the other side, when he had Dean Barrow, he would of course look the way he did with nothing else
Right.
confronting him of that kind of prowess, if you
Yeah.
will. He can look good. He easily look good if you don't got no opposition against you. So
right.
Right. And I think that's what I saw. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I just round up in 60 seconds. I think, again, in terms of the opportunity side, I could do a SWOT on Johnny, but in terms of the opportunity side, I believe that Johnny is in a position where he sees a journey. And he's comfortable enough talking about where we are now and where we want to be. And to me, that's the mark of a leader. And I got some of that from his speech. Also, in terms of opportunities, for Toastmasters, we mark down people. Like, if we look at a Dean Barrow versus a Johnny Briceño, the slow plodding delivery of Dean Barrow, we would mark him down because he talks at a snail's pace, which means that his thoughts are not coherent enough. So he would be marked down.
a lot of
Versus
pregnant pauses.
Versus a Johnny Briceño that, in my view, is not as intelligent as Dean, but certainly in terms of his speech development, Johnny talks at a conversational level. And I think that puts his audience at ease. I think that a lot of what Dean Barrow did 5 years ago in terms of making Johnny look small, he can't do now.
Bridget?
On that same score that I gave you, A, B, C, D, E, F, U, I would be inclined to give Johnny, and I was a teacher, very severe teacher with grades, a stingy with grades. I would give Johnny a C plus or a B minus, which is a good grade as far as I am concerned.
Your class, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would give him a C plus or a B minus.
I'm not a big fan of Johnny Briceño, and I've made that public because I think he has his hand in too many pots. And that is
Mr. Chairman?
my major. But as far as one second. As
Can
far
I give
as
you
yes, go ahead. We need.
No, what I'm sometimes I kind of like lose the trends of certain thoughts, and something was popping in my head while Mr. Mybit was talking, and I wanted us to expound on it a little bit, if you don't mind.
Well, you
Just
may, but
not too long, not long.
hold up.
Not long, sir.
Bear in mind that all of us have that same problem. In particular, when you get older, then say,
No,
"No, my old man can't forget what he was saying."
With me, it's a disease.
All right, but yeah, got it, man. Got it.
Going back to Mr. Mybit, speaking about Mr. Barrow, the tempo of speech. I would like to bring to everybody's attention that it is not by accident that he does that. It's a deliberate process. And the reason why he would tend to do that, as I can specifically point out, is that in between the timing that he's taking to slow down his speech, he's also using up some of his intellectual capabilities to rationalize and to, in some instances, obfuscate or to try and generate a separation of the facts and the wordings that he's bringing out and spewing out. It's a technique.
Well, yes, it is a technique.
Most orators
Not
tend to.
most. Not most.
No,
They
no,
don't
I would
have.
say most
They don't have.
orators.
No,
No, I'm talking about
they don't
orators.
have
No, I'm
such.
talking about people
No,
who specialize in
hold on.
delivering speeches.
They don't
You know,
have such pregnant pauses. That man have
not the way he
extreme.
does it.
So okay,
Very
that's
good,
what we're
G.
Not the
saying.
way he does it.
Very
But
good, G. Mike.
it's always an intended effort to allow more space and time for additional brainstorming and thought processing
Yes, but
on
that
what is it that you're putting across, so that you can
that
come
in,
over and whitewash a little bit of what you're doing
that
for
that
the
that
the receptiveness of the public or the people that are hearing your stuff. When in
But
fact
make the
sometimes you're
point,
actually
man.
lying to them.
Not keep the qualify the point, man. Just make the point. Yeah, I hear your point.
Well,
But it goes back to
I
what
just
no,
want to
no,
jump
no.
in there, G. Mike.
Yeah,
Uh-huh,
but
but
I just want to say something because it goes back to what you were saying, George, that he's not talking at a normal pace, and
Right.
that means he needs that time to formulate his thoughts, and it's not.
Yes.
it's
It doesn't.
deliberate.
To me, I
Yes.
don't trust a person too much. Because when you take so much time, it's not natural. So you're fabricating things as you
It's
go
about
along.
obfuscating and conning people.
Talking
But
And
about
he,
the best. Talking
he
about
knows
the
he
talking
knows
about
what.
talking
Oh,
about the
I'm
best
sorry.
speaker in the house. I would have to say that Patrick Farber, in my view, was the best speaker in the house because he's the one who could stand and speak on his feet and not really have to read enough a thing and whatnot. Unfortunately, he has his own problems that plagues him. Now go ahead,
Yeah.
George.
Well,
Yeah. I just wanted to stick a point with Leonard there in terms of Mr. Barrow's grade in relation to his plodding pace. And I said that in Toastmasters, which has standards, one of the things that we do in Toastmasters is you get 2 minutes. You go to a wedding and somebody asks you for talk. You have to have one introduction that is catching. You have to have one body, and you have to have a conclusion that leaves people with a message. Mr. Barrow would not fare well in Toastmasters in the 2-minute speech that we
he's
have.
a con.
Well, you could say all that, but I think in spite of all that, everybody considers Mr. Barrow's speaking very successful and a great orator. So
Yeah.
with all those standards and with all that,
I wouldn't say
I
everybody, not
well,
everybody.
I won't say there's never everybody.
I would
But
think the
I'm saying
majority.
I'm
I agree
saying
with
a vast majority of people on
I
either
think
side of the party of
I
the
agree. I agree.
party. That's what I'm referring to.
He also has an excellent ability to interject humor
Yes.
and draw on little stories and things
Yes.
that he puts
These
in
are all
there
techniques,
to keep
learned
you
techniques.
interested. So he
Yes.
does.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
technique, sir.
Yeah.
I
They're all
agree.
learned techniques.
It
Yeah.
is a technique, and but he's good at it. And
Yes. Yes.
he
And
he
and he
comes up.
doesn't put you to sleep. He doesn't put
He
you to
sends
Right.
sleep.
you. What he does do is send you to the dictionary or Google or wherever it is.
And I think he does
That
that
is
too
also
intentionally.
deliberate.
Yeah.
And
That
this
is
one,
also
this is really
deliberate.
good though, because your audience, you don't want to leave your audience puzzled or unsure. And then if we talk about abilities, then you have to rate him against who?
Well,
Well,
who do you
We
have to
really
rate
do
him
not
against?
have many,
he was
we
the
do
best.
really
He
do
was the
not have
best.
many
There was none that
orators in the
compared.
race.
There
I
was none
remember,
in.
just to
Well,
call some names, Ken
I'll say
Killedy
Mr. Price will give him
was
a
an
run for his
excellent
money.
orator.
It's,
Oh well, yeah,
no,
but
no,
they
no,
were
no,
never
no,
competitors,
no.
right?
But make we
Right,
say
right. That's true.
make we clear this up because we're talking in context of delivery and
Yes.
speaking and whatnot, and being able to convince people of what he's saying, not
Yes.
necessary honesty. Because if you,
Mhm.
I think with Mr. Price, he not even come close because he was not an honest fellow. And a lot of the things he did was geared towards convincing people. He was a sophist, let's put it that way.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
was good at
Price,
making a weak argument strong and convincing you. You go along and you sure that the man talk fool, and at the end of it you stop and you say to yourself, well, maybe the man not really talk so much fool after all. You know, he was good at convincing people of even things that were not easy to convince about. Greg, you were saying something.
Well, I kind of lost my thought there. But
That's easy.
I was I was going to say that
You don't hang around me too long, Mr.
yeah. When you compare
You catch me disease.
when you compare George Price to any of them in terms of just be able to capture a moment. You see, that's why I think George Price was different. He was able to capture a moment. The difference then with Barrow is that he could tell you a story. George Price, I don't think, was much of a storyteller, but he could put you in a position where you say, you know, that is what we want for Belize. I don't think I got that same kind of concept when I listened to Dean Barrow. You know, when George Price tells you we want Christian social justice so that the poor will have and the rich will not feel that anything was taken away from them. You know, those are ideas that you could feast on. And I don't see any of the other leaders that offers that. Yes, Dean Barrow could give you a good speech. He will send you to the dictionary and he will not put you to sleep, but he didn't offer you anything beyond the moment that you
Much
were there.
hope. Much
Yeah,
hope.
yeah.
You-
Beyond the
One
moment,
word,
beyond the
one
moment.
word, contriteness. Apply that to each of these individuals that we're talking about, and you'll see that that is at the core of the good
What word is that?
contriteness.
Conciteness.
Contrition.
Contrite, to be contrite.
Contrition.
All right,
In other words,
contrition.
allowing yourself, delivering yourself in your speech to the audience that's listening to your speech, as compared to trying to get into the audience head and condemn.
Yes, yes.
Of course, you can use both principles for the same end result.
I believe that Mr. Price's strength was to pitch his conversations at the level that his audience was at. I think he was blessed with that. After he was done, you did not need to consult anybody. You did not need to go to any dictionary.
Remember, he was a trained Jesuit, right?
I wouldn't consider him a great orator, but I think he was a great messenger.
Yes.
He got his points
People's
across
person.
Yes.
very, very effectively.
Yes.
But if you
Remember,
listen,
Mr. Barrow, but in terms of his profession, needs to know how to deliver good arguments.
Yeah,
And
and that's what he does.
And
that's what
those
he does.
arguments need to be pitched at a level where it convinces somebody who is in an adjudicating position
Right.
to see where you're going. So
Right.
you can't touch
Yeah.
Mr. Barrow with that.
Yes, and that's a good point. That's a good point.
Right?
but I think a man like Dean Barrow pays more attention to convincing you that something is how he wants you to see it, as opposed to convincing you that what he's saying is indeed truth and fact. And I think that was a separation. George was real. But if you listen to some of the speeches he delivered, in particular to the UN and those, you would understand that he was indeed a good orator also. He did not have many arms and some of these speakers we have now, you spend more time to count the arms than you do listening to what they're saying. And I was sad
Because
thing.
they're fudging.
Yeah, there's a term for it. I don't remember what it is. I found it the other day.
Clutch words. They're using a lot of clutch words.
Yeah, but there's
Clutch
a phrase, a particular word for when you use even the pregnant pauses that Dean Barrow uses.
Yes.
And the arm, and you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You're gonna a lot of that from a lot of people who speak, and you get the impression that, well, he's not really genuine, and yes, it sounds good and all of that, but where's the beef?
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, I've heard speeches for Dean Barrow that he has delivered to international audience. I remember the one to the Summit of the Americas when President Obama was president, and I remember that being a very good speech and delivery. And I didn't see a lot of those pregnant pause and those ahs and stuff that we're talking about.
Because he did not want to embarrass himself.
Yeah, I think when he's among, that's what I was going to say, when he's among the local, then he's forced to kind of make things up, as we may be inferring, and those are the times when he breaks into those particular situations.
That's a very good point. I think that Dean is comfortable with those when he's among his peers, intellectually and professionally. So he is one of the better speakers in the Caribbean, not the best, because he's definitely not in the league of a gentleman named Ralph Gonzalez, the
Where's
Prime
he?
Minister of St. Vincent.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
he's definitely not in the league of Amir Motley. But
I think I
um,
don't think Mia Motley would make him. I think they're pretty much on the same par. I know. No, no, no.
There's a difference of
I think
opinion there.
no.
There's a
On
difference of
international,
opinion there.
That
on
would be a little
international.
stretch. That would be a
No,
little stretch if we try to put them on the same. It's not
no,
fair. It's not a
Yeah,
fair.
Well, you might
no,
be. Are you
no.
comparing the speech that you said, one of his best speech, which indeed then you yourself might have been in a different frame of mind at that point. You might have been looking at him in a more favorable light, because that also has a factor on whether how we see it. You see what I'm saying? If I'm a big Johnny Briceño fan, I think he delivered a good speech. If I'm a big Shine Barrow fan, I'm thinking the same way. But
Yeah, yeah.
if I'm
Yeah.
not in a frame of mind where I'm happy with either of them, then I would say the speeches weren't too hot either. So, but
Yeah.
how
well,
my perception of it also has a factors in. But yeah,
well, you're looking at me. I am not. I don't have any horses in this race.
well,
You see,
haven't
so
I heard that
I
before?
am.
If I
I
if
am
I got
as objective as they get. And you see,
you sound
you
like
expect me to
that's so
castigate.
Trumpian. That's so Trumpian.
You expect me to
You're
castigate.
the most objective person in the world. There's nobody more
I
objective
am. I
than you.
am. I am.
I got you. I got you.
I am not PUP. I am not UDP. I am for the people.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
If I was to have a dime for any time I heard that, but I'm not doubting you. I believe that you might be one of the persons, might be the first to speak truth with that. No, but really, but I think the speeches on a whole did not bring much. They didn't bring much. In fact, even in promises, where Dean Barrow is known for giving big promises every year, right to have mortgages,
Lying.
do all of that, a big part of it. Johnny basically bring that minimum wage is going to be $5 come January, and that was
Long
basically it
overdue.
as far as I saw. And in fact, not only overdue, but few people in Belize make less than $5 an hour. I
Mhm.
certainly don't pay people per minimum wage when they do a job for me. I figure how much I would cost, how much I would do it for, and try to pay them based on that. But minimum wage, I think $5. That's just that
And
procedural thing.
and this is where Shine Barrow could have made some points, although he went before Dean, because the problem that
before
we
Johnny.
have is not the minimum wage. Before he went before Johnny, the problem is that as soon as you get that increase in salary, the merchants, including people at gas stations, send up them prices.
What do you mean as
So-
soon? You mean before?
Before, yeah,
Then
They're doing that right now.
The
in
Chinese are
I don't
already
know
anticipation.
which one yet.
they're already plotting that
Yeah.
that increase. And so what Shine could have done in anticipation of that is to say that these razor pays are useless if you don't contain the cost of living.
Yes. Yeah, that would have been a good point. But hindsight is 20/20 vision, no?
Yeah, well, that's true, but I'm just saying
But
that
you expect them to have
Shine was
that, right?
prepared. And
Yeah.
I do not believe that is a lack of advice, A lady came to visit me yesterday. We had a meeting on a different subject. She is in there with the UDP. She was a CEO. And basically she's saying that Shine is isolated. So
Oh, yeah.
even if he has advisors on that speech, I can't see him basically taking those advice. He listens to them, but he will not. That is where he seems to be.
Let us look on that for a minute. As far as Shine being isolated, where the UDP is, what the possibility is of them making a comeback anytime soon within the next 2 or 3 general elections, and what effect did he embracing Jan Saldiva have on his standing there and his being further isolated? Any comments?
I believe that there are a number of flaws in terms of where the UDP is. If you have as your go-to guy and a man that is kind of in a leadership position in terms of advisory support, if you have a John Saldiva, John is a failed John is a failed quantum, not only in terms of losing election, but in terms of his character flaws. Everybody remember the Lev Derman issue. So it's indicating to me that if John is this big wig in there, succession is not happening in the party. I do not see anybody under the generation of John Saldivar and perhaps Patrick Farber that is knocking at the door. So in terms of the people that are carrying the party, the same old heads will not cut it.
Tracy?
So I think that the party has to make some adjustments. There has to be not succession planning, but succession implementation. They need to go out there and they need to feel for candidates that can inspire, that has networking, and most of all, that has some amount of financial oomph. You can't have people in there that are broke.
What do you?
Because when you're in there, you have to be able to carry yourself financially to some extent. In relation to how quick they get there, G. Mike, one of the variables will be how bad the PUPs are doing. And I think that at this juncture, a fair amount of people are not happy with the PUPs. I think where the danger is that people like Shine Barrow and John Saldivar, they are operating on 10 years ago, and they think that people might vote them in just because they're tired of the PUPs, but that will not happen. You know?
What about Tracy Panton? What's your views on her? Is she not in line for succession?
I don't know that. You can't just have any leader. I don't know that Tracy has the that she's not inspirational. She doesn't carry a message. I think that what you would have is a kind of status quo in the seat that is less toxic than either Shine or Saldivar, etc.
Actually, I don't think she have the like you said. She don't have the oomph. I don't think she'd be as exciting as Shine at all.
I think a word here, appropriate word, would be charisma. I don't think she has charisma.
That's for sure, sir.
And that certainly is a big trait that people look for. No, if they don't like you, and she's a person that will pass you on the street without saying hello, you can't be a politician and do that. Well, Patrick's a big problem with him was he didn't answer his phone. He wouldn't get back to you, regardless of what situation you're talking to him about. He had one guy who was his took all his calls and everything, and have to push it to him. I have to go. I'm always wary of these politicians that have somebody that you have to go through to get to them. Why didn't we elect that person then if you couldn't do the job?
That's not bad if they get back to you. Right? Because I think most people believe and understand that a politician can't be everywhere doing everything. But the point is, if they do make that point, to get back to you. So I think that's his failure. I don't have a problem with them having someone else being upfront, responding and helping out. But getting back to you is what I view as most crucial.
I don't see it as a personality issue. I see it as a structural issue. If you look across the Caribbean, Belize has a model of politics that you don't see across the Caribbean. The elected representatives tend to be charged with policy, broad policies, and the public service implements. In Belize, the era reps and the ministers have taken on an executive management position where you have to see the minister of lands to get piece of land, and then people let a Cordell office or a house for 4 in the morning, and Cordell did a Belize City, did a Bamapan, and that is not by accident. There's a huge hustling. That is a part of the corruption ring. Where you have to see the driver, because when you see the driver man tell you that he could carry the document. He could make the minister look on your document next Monday. And then the minister visit you, the driver visit you. And then you need to drop your hand. And I'm saying this from factual experience. One of my colleagues bought a piece of land in Turnef about 10 years ago. And a UDP, and I was a previous lands minister. and that 3,000 piece of land costed him $30,000 in bribe money. Can you imagine a poor guy have to come up with 30,000? Can you imagine somebody where they wheel at thousands of acres?
Yeah, but you know how I see that? I tell you how I see that. If you want to be corrupt enough to think you go buy one piece of seafront property with 3,000, then you need to be taxed 30,000 because that's the way you should have been paid to start with. There's a place. There's a place back by UB. You know where the UB is, where they sell the road, where we're supposed to, the Seesaw Drive was supposed to continue past UB.
Right.
They sold the actual road there, and $2,000 was what they paid for a piece of the beach front in front of there. And the residents got up in arms when they were cutting down all the mangrove and whatnot, and say, you know what? And then when it all came out, $2,000 for a piece of land, and nobody can be held accountable.
G Mike, and this is where the corruption comes in. Do you know the valuation of land? There's a two-tier valuation of land. There's what they call the social rate. So, for example, there's a guy in Rennie, your boy Rennie, have a company that Turnef, where they bought a piece of land for, I'm just calling a number here. They bought a piece of land for about $5,000. I'm just calling a number here. And they did no improvement to that piece of land. When they took government to court because government wanted to acquire it, you know how much government pay? For the same $5,000 piece of land, government pay about $5 million. And that is because you have this two-tier system where there's a social rate and then there's a market value rate. So that has to be fixed. This is what happened with Gappy's son, G Mike. You know, he walked away.
Of course.
He walked away from charges.
Sued. Hold up. He sued the government and got more money. Did you know that?
Yes.
All right.
You know, I really also wanted to talk.
We need to say you need to say if Mr. Leonard have one vehicle for sale, he can't have one price of $5,000 to me, G Mike, and $100,000 for you. That's the same vehicle.
But and more than that. But if he sell a vehicle that does not belong to him, but belongs to the people, and then he have to get paid back for the vehicle, or the person have to get paid back for the vehicle, it should be him that pays it, not we. We the people. Yes. We have to pay back these extraordinary sums when in fact we had nothing to do with it. If it was up to us, it wouldn't have been sold. So
I want to talk
by accident.
about
that is a deliberate, established process.
Yeah, I also want to talk about
treasury.
Yeah, I would also want to talk a little bit about the Prime Minister meeting with the Secretary of State Blinken the other day, and and he did give a little bit of a speech. It was just a quick introduction, saying they were going to kind of have a meeting and stuff, and I haven't seen anything. They haven't released anything yet on what was discussed, but they had introduced some of the subjects, and it was climate change and de-risking, and some of those things were on top, drugs and migration and all that. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look into those yet.
I think much of that lip service. Let's look at climate change. Belize is only a small country. What can we do? What have we done to affect climate change, and what can we do to stop climate change? There's very little.
We're a small country.
We not even after Ian at that conversation. I don't think the big countries that are causing the problems ought to be the ones that's working on stopping the problem, but they do it all the time, and the small one man that will get chingar. Go ahead.
Well, that's the area of the discussion, is that you guys are creating this problem for us, and then now you need to have a manner of helping us harden our infrastructure against the effects of climate change. So those are the conversation we need to have. Not that we could in effect do something to stop it, although we are doing some considerably good things in terms of putting allocation for preserving the forests and the ocean areas and things like that I think does help. And if other countries could take examples from what we're doing, there is an opportunity. Yes.
May I?
Go ahead, please.
We're a small country, as Mr. Chairman said. but we're doing an outsized job in terms of the amount of land in our country that we are keeping
reserves.
Yeah,
in
we're
reserve.
lifting above our weight, way above
We're
our weight.
punching above our
As a
weight.
result,
Yeah.
we can be compared to a small Brazil.
Yeah.
And you see what Brazil is doing right now to their reserves. They're cutting it down and burning it down deliberately.
Well, Mr. Brackett, I just wanted to go to a philosophical point, G. Mike, in relation to climate change specifically. Our approach is a great approach. Our approach is we need to regionalize it. So who has been actually leading the charge on climate change on behalf of Small Island developing states, which is global, it's not only the Caribbean, has been actually Belize. As you may know, the Regional Climate Change Center is headquartered in Belmopan.
Mhm.
And that is not by accident. That is because Belize has convinced the Caribbean that we are a vulnerable state just like them, but even more so, because we have an ethic that the Barrier Reef should not be exposed to anything that would decrease its viability. And so a part of what we have done, gentlemen, is that we have said to the world, one of the things that is getting impacted is coral reef. And those coral reefs are impacted because of the increase in temperature and because of acidification of the ocean.
Mhm.
And so we have gotten the world to support us in what we call some resiliency studies of coral reefs in Placencia, in Turneffe. Part of the response is that there's a way of corals. And so, G. Mike, I would say, yes, we are not irrelevant, but we have to be careful that every time we put our best foot forward, and I'll tell you one area that we championed, and we championed it because of the great mind of Mr. Mr. Leslie, Kenrick Leslie, who's a great scientist. He was the actual manager, executive director of the Climate Change Center. To our credit again, Mr. Leslie retired 2 years ago, and now we have Dr. Roy Young, actually as the director of the Regional Climate Change Center. So, on that one, we're scoring big, we're punching above our weight. It's a regional approach. Where the difficulty is that the big countries, they make these promises, and when there's time to deliver, they're pulling back.
Well,
And so
they expect us to deliver.
skepticism.
They expect the small countries to deliver and then put pressure upon us when we don't, when we can only do so much.
Part of our problem there is that we go to these meetings, for example, in the COP27 and the others, and we don't take any kind of prepared documents to show what we would like for them to finance on our behalf to justify the effort that we are doing in punching above our own weight. We don't go there with programs, with things in our hands. I could recall when the UDP was in power, well, before they got in power in 2007, I saw all this issue about this climate change and all these things coming up on the horizon, and I created a plan for developing Belize City to the point where it would have made a difference, and it would have helped us to get some money by developing and having additional lands, create another sea wall 1,000 feet outside of the existing seawall of the country at a higher level, backfilling the difference, sell those properties to foreign investors, including the Taiwanese who are giving us hundreds of millions of dollars every year to supplement our budget, and other countries who would like to do investment in our country. The problem is that when I was going to give it to whoever won the 2008 election, and it happened to be the UDP that won it. I gave it to the UDP. Each member of cabinet was given a copy. When I asked Mr. Esquivel, who was the financial advisor to Mr. Mr. Barrow at the time, because he was the immediate past Prime Minister under UDP and had the knowledge of how budgets and things like those operate. When I asked the man what the guys thought about the plan, the man said, bracket, then Bale said this thing is too ambitious. So I was honest, but I spent all my money, time, effort, resource, and technical input and support from a lot of my colleagues and people out here who saw what I was trying to put forward, and they contribute. A lot of them, their technical knowledge and so on to help me with the process. And these guys are going to turn around and say that the stuff was too ambitious. No wonder the man eventually ended up doing so on the streets, which was part of the original program, but without drainage, so that the water was backflowing into people's yard when they was building the streets a little higher.
Yeah.
They did a lot of crazy stuff that they did bits and pieces of the plan, but they never implemented the plan. The end result, and I happen to know now, as I'm sitting here, what was the reason why they didn't implement the plan. Because a lot of the properties then where they on seafront right now would not have continued being seafront. The new developed properties would have became the new seafront.
Did you know? Did you know that there's a law that you should not build 66 feet
from the coast,
from any coast, any waterway, even?
Yep.
Yeah. They call it the riparian law.
So why are we not implementing?
No, but
why don't we?
That was intended to be okay. Just I'll go back right now and I'll show you this very same point that you brought up earlier when you mentioned about the people that want to sell the piece of land on the seafront and block off the road, right? Block off access. That's amongst the same violation of that same riparian principle.
True. Yes.
But they didn't give a damn. As of today, all of us are talking here right now, and that stuff has never been reversed. The whole of that piece of land still hold it. I'm saying that we had a bigger plan that I had projected forward, and the reason why the plan didn't go forward is because some people whose land are now on the seafront would not become the seafront then. But that was a strategic and tactical and economic, as well as hardening the facade of the city to create bigger structures and heavier, stronger structures on the front of our sea wall, on the front of our city, as a protective mechanism for the rest of the city. Okay? There was a whole lot of technical reasons why that should have been done, and it should have been taken to, because it is the Belize City Council could not issue bonds without the central government's backing and authority.
Right.
They got the money issued for the bonds that I mentioned in order to help finance the stuff, and a lot of the money just got wasted. The whole overall project was never attempted.
Surprise, surprise.
I just wanted to hit on those points. 2 points, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow me.
Please.
The 66 feet issue has been in the law. It's all British law that kind of filtered down to the territories. The all justification is that the public should have right of way in front of your property. So when you look at a Ramada, where it started in Belize City, it's a huge problem in Jamaica where I went to school. When you look at a Ramada that has its fence right down across the seawall, this should not give. This should not happen. That is against the law. But they are permitted to do it. And so to me, you have to address the issue of the rule of law. Are we for the rule of law or are we not? Governance requires from time to time that you do the things that are right and not necessarily the things that are popular. And that is where there's a huge divide. That's the first thing. The second aspect of that is that the seafront, Belize is really a delta. And it's a delta that is swampy. And it's dominated by mangroves. If there was no houses in Belize, the whole of this delta may be mangrove. So one of the reasons of saying don't go there is that mangrove intertidal, mangrove grow generally below the high tide line. And so the modern justification is that you should allow the 66 feet and more because this is where mangroves grow that has a protection function, it has an ecological function, etc., etc. Nobody bother with that. Mangrove has become the most valuable quote-unquote land, which it is not. I'll go to another issue, the blue carbon, and this is in relation to Leonard. When he said that we are prepared, we go to these meetings and we are not prepared. And I would say to him, yes, to some extent, but I think the larger problem is there's a communication gap in Belize, a communication gap between the government and its policies and the general public. The parish cup, which I think happened about 2 years ago, where Johnny, no, more than 2.
Cup 27.
Where your president, Trump, withdrew from the parish agreement. Actually, Belize came away winning because Belize, Johnny Briceño actually went there in tow with a technical team. And what they came back with was the blue carbon. I don't know how much you guys know about blue carbon, but that's the buzzword and that's the functional thing right now. That has been spun into a kind of debt for nature swap, where the government of Belize has obligated itself to a group of non-government organizations to do some conservation work, and that conservation work is to extend protected areas management in the marine environment in exchange for them picking up a substantial part of the Belize debt.
Is that where this restructuring of the super bond came in?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And is
That
that
is where it came in.
and is that
So
a part
I
of
have
the,
to give, I have
is
to
that
give
a part
Mr.
of the carbon
Briceño-
footprint?
I have to give Mr. Briceño major stripes for that because it was on Dean Barrow's table.
Well, actually, I think that process got started under the Barrow administration and got finalized and completed under the Briceño government. But
Because it happened shortly after they got in.
yes,
Well-
yes.
Well, you're not wrong, Mr. Morrison, but I'll tell you, because that is right in relation to my former professional responsibilities. The previous government was looking at a hustle, and they refused to go the other step with the NGO community. Everything was a hustle for the previous administration.
Well, I
And
think
so
with
they
every
could have
government,
come
it's
away
a
looking
hustle.
like roses. So it's not a situation where they did the legwork and then Mr. Johnny Briceño just signed on it. Mr. Johnny Briceño had to basically go and renegotiate in terms of getting a better quantum and a better arrangement that was offered to the previous prime minister.
When you
So
say,
I'm not sound like I did defend.
Well, I think
even
that
issue
happened.
base.
I think that happened, but we have to remember there were lots of issues that showed that a lot of those debts was going to be in more crisis because of the COVID situation. So yes, there was some renegotiation under Briceño that made it a little better, but the circumstances of the time also dictate that. And I don't think it was them cleverly outdoing what the Barrow administration was doing in that area.
but your point.
Does the panel recall?
Your point, Greg, in that you holding up one administration as saying they were in it for hustle against the
Yes.
next
They
administration
were hesitant.
as if they weren't. They're all
Yeah,
in it
yeah.
for
They were
hustle.
hesitant.
Yeah.
You can be
Okay.
sure a lot of hustling going on
Yeah.
as it is with that.
Yes.
All that
Yes.
money
They
is
were
not
hesitant.
coming to us.
Can I
Go ahead,
say
go
something
ahead, Brockett.
quickly?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
I can recall specifically Mr. Barrow complaining about Mr. Courtney, whose law firm was part of the law group that was working on this project before the UEP lost its big election. And Mr. Courtney was saying he was castigating the UDP for being involved in that undertaking. And Mr. Barrow told him, how can you be the senior partner of a law firm who is actually a member of the group of law firms that was dealing with that particular matter? I don't know if how much any of the member of the panel recall that particular set of circumstances. But the bottom line is,
Sorry.
Okay, the bottom line is that yes, it was UDP that started that particular issue, and yes, hustling was part of the name of the game because the PUP lawyers got paid, the UDP lawyers got paid,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of the day, it took the Briceño administration to come in and close the deal under the presumption of striking a new deal. Well, the new deal was because Mr. Courtney was already having his nose under the tent. And when the new administration came in, he, as a senior advisor to the present administration, was able to help them swing that deal. And unless people recall these circumstances and have this knowledge present in their mind, they will not be able to understand the intricacies that goes on behind the scene and how these things fit. And therefore, sometimes we make uninformed statements. You know?
There's also one.
Ask you a question, Mr. Brackett. Any transaction that has to do with policies and plans in the government needs to be accompanied by some legal writ. And so the parties that were behind the Blue Bond has every right to choose who they want as a lawyer. And so my question to you is, what exactly was Mr. Barrow objecting to in relation to Mr. Courtney representing those parties? What is it that he was objecting to?
Quick one. I think that would be a quick one. The point is that Mr. Courtney was castigating the UDP for selling out big tracts of land to foreign investors.
Yes.
Mr. Barrow went back and pointed out to him that it is a matter of fact that his law firm was one of the law firms that was contracted to help negotiate this process, and his law firm got paid just like any of the other law firm. It is all a part of a requirement. But Mr. Courtney was pretending initially, until he was put on the on the public blast by Mr. Barrow. Mr. Courtney was pretending that, well, he's on the side of the public and looking out for the public's best interest as an outside of the government, proponent or instigator.
He was representing.
When in fact he was part of the law team. He was the senior partner in that law firm.
It's a policy issue. You are reducing it to personalities. It's a policy issue.
No.
Where
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on the policy.
Yeah.
But these guys, what I'm trying to say to you is that these guys work with each other behind the scenes to make their money. To hell with the public and the country. If I must be that raw with it. Okay?
No. I want to say that you might recall that Mr. Courtney, based on Mr. Barrow's shenanigan, called him a rank hypocrite. He was hugging up with Michael Ashcroft and pretending differently. So when it comes to
these guys play games on the public, totally unaware.
These guys are just about the same.
But let's go to your.
They cuss up each other in the House of Assembly, and when they're done, they go drink them beer together. I'm count their money.
Let's go to a famous free term that you guys coined, the PUDP. We know that after a certain level, when you go high enough, there's no separation there. You're right. They're
Exactly.
both the same. They're all making money because there are a lot of Courtney did not make as much money under the PUP as he did under the UDP. So it doesn't matter who they are. There's certain people who make their money anyway. Stuart Leslie, I remember Stuart Leslie right there beside Dean Barrow the whole time. And now he's right up on Johnny Briceño. How does that happen? How do you
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Courtney earned the money under UDP, but he never get paid under UDP. Because Mr. Ashcroft never pay until he collect the money from the government. So now that the PUP government is in power, we know they hear nothing about Mr. Ashcroft. They cry and holler and he and cry and how, because he's getting paid.
But
he didn't get a big lump sum, but he's getting his money.
Well, he got good lump sum. He's getting $87 million. You don't think that's good money?
No, we want more than that.
Oh, of course, he wants 500 million.
It would be nice for him to get all of it in one lump sum, but we don't have the credit worthiness to be able to afford that.
I wanted to say something though. As we create these blue bonds and these type of different instruments, I always I'm cautious though, because I want to make sure that we don't lock ourselves into future development possibilities for the country. We have to be careful that as we set these things up, we're mindful that
Arrested development.
future generation will need some of these resources to bring about
Mhm.
true development to the country. So we have to set them in a way that will not penalize our future mortgage, so that we end up with the same kind of situation as we did with Ashcroft, where we owe them so much money and stuff. So that is something I hope both government and all the people that are committed to these things now, they see a quick insurge of cash or forgiveness or whatever, that we're not mortgaged or future of our generations, that now somebody else own these lands and they're deciding how the utilization of those lands, or if we were to get it back, we're back at the same place where we are in terms of not being able to afford resources for development.
Coming to that, do you believe that it was a good move for the PUP to pay off that money to Michael Ashcroft?
Well, we'll have to pay him at one point or another.
Yeah, I think at one point they'll have to pay him because the obligation is through the ICJ. The obligation is the court has ruled that we have to. I think they probably should have worked out a little better
ICJ
terms.
or CCJ?
CCJ, Caribbean Court of Justice.
Right.
I think they should have worked out a little better measures so that he doesn't get $87 million in such a big
one lump
trough,
sum.
you know.
Yeah.
But I think when I look at that, I said, hey, is that some money coming back? 10 million stayed in Belize, or some portion of it?
Of
is
course.
That political financing?
Of course.
That's happening.
Would you be surprised? Would you be surprised?
No.
Okay.
No.
When Mr. Ashcroft get here, Mr. Courtney get happy because Mr. Ashcroft owing him millions of dollars.
Mr. Courtney and Mr. Barra get happy.
We did an hour and a half now because we started at about 7. Let's do it to 8:30. We got 4 or 5 minutes to wrap up. George, you were getting ready to say something?
Yes, in relation to paying Mr. Ashcroft in one fell swoop, I believe that it was an irresponsible thing to do. I believe that given the exigency that we have in this country, you would note that on social media over the last day and a half, in the wake of that accident that happened really yesterday, everybody is saying the roads are in a bad shape, a bad and terrible shape. And I'm saying that when you look at that, and when you look at the situation of poverty, and when you look at the needs across the board, you should have been, as in the government of Belize, should have been in a better position to say to Mr. Ashcroft, let us negotiate to the extent that it's a win-win for us and you. We will pay you over 3 to 5 years. We cannot afford to pay you $76 million right now.
And maybe stop the interest. Stop the interest.
Right. They could negotiate with him. He's a businessman. He's a guy of figures.
A bona fide negotiation.
You see,
a bona fide negotiation.
But also,
the problem is that Mr. Ashcroft controls both UDP and PUP in terms of he finances both parties. He finances the politics of the country, and whoever wins, he still wins.
But Mr. Ashcroft is a national parasite. And the worst thing
I don't know. I wouldn't get to.
Yeah, we
did
up on that.
He's a national parasite.
We did up on that.
No, I think he's a businessman.
Wait, man.
He's a businessman, and a businessman has a responsibility to make the most profit he can for his business.
Yes, but there's such a thing as good corporate. There's such a thing as good corporate citizen and malign corporate citizen.
That doesn't make him a bad corporate citizen to want his money. And to make
using him for a scapegoat. You're using him as a scapegoat. That's basically what it is. He's a scapegoat.
I am saying that he has come into a country where he realizes that the laws are weak and the politicians are pliable. And so I am saying, but make the point that a bad parasite kills its host.
Well, that's true, but I don't see the man as a parasite.
That point is true, but that point does not your point is that the man is a parasite.
No. My point is
the man is an investor. He got the
No.
money.
He's an
Yeah.
investor, yes, but he's a bad investor. And
I
he's a
don't
bad
think
investor
so. I
because
don't
only
think so
he is
because
winning.
the people
Belize,
that are supposed
no,
to be
man.
protecting us. No, because you're putting it on one side. We have
Belize is
people
not
that have.
winning. That is what I am saying, Mr.
Why is
Ashcroft.
Belize not
Is
winning?
a
Why is Belize not
one-sided
winning?
benefit.
Why is Belize not
It's flowing
winning?
in one direction. He would
Why
be
is
the
Belize
last
not
person I
winning?
would defend. I prefer to
No,
see
I'm
this
not
thing
defending
going.
him.
But you're going off track, George.
No.
Stick with where Greg with that. Greg, they asked you a question.
Well,
Deal with
what
that.
is he's saying that he's disagreeing that Mr. Ashcroft is not a parasite.
No,
I'm saying
that's
that
not.
is
That's
his
not.
opinion.
No. You said Belize is not winning. He's saying why is Belize not winning?
Belize
Yeah.
is not winning because you could look at the variables. You could look at where poverty is. You could look at what cost of living is.
And
You could
Ashcroft
look
is
at a range
responsible.
of issues.
No,
And
but
you're
is
giving a lot of
Ashcroft
power.
responsible?
Oh,
Is
here we
Ashcroft
go.
responsible for that?
You're
What?
giving a lot of power to the
But
man.
he's not.
Is-
He's not interrupt. He's interrupting me.
I beg to interject for a second, please. Why
All right.
Mr. Ashcroft is actually a parasite, as Mr. Mybit was intimating, is because the man is a business person, but you don't, all over the world you don't have malignant business people. You have
Exactly.
some, and all over the world you don't have good corporate business people or good corporate citizens, but you have some.
Make
The
we
point,
talk
wait,
about it.
wait.
Well, hold up, man. Make we talk about it.
It's important
Why is it malignant? Why do you consider him malignant?
You
What
want to change the
Mr.
trend of
Bracket
thought.
Englishman.
No, I don't care. I
Bring up
don't
a question where the change where the try to
No,
complete
no,
that.
no, no. You can't, but you can't just run over things like that. You
But
can't.
let Mr. Bracket finish
Okay,
the thought.
let me show you.
No, no.
Let me-
Why
in
is
our
he
budget,
a malignant? No,
In
but
our
you
budget-
state a fact as if a fact, and then when questioned, you can't answer the question.
But you are not allowing him to. You are not
You're not
allowing
even
him
answering
to.
the first question.
How long
You're
does
taking me
it
on to a
take,
second
George?
question
You are not allowing
to
him
start up a
conclude
different
his argument.
conversation
How
and not
long
allowing
does
me
it
to finish
take a
the last
person to make a
statement that
point?
I'm trying to make.
Let me just bring one point. One
You
quick
remember
point.
that 2 minutes that Toast Cross?
Yeah, okay. Well, then let me
Let
finish
me
answering the
just-
question, please, before we change it.
Let me just bring one point.
It's very critical.
This mine will take a second. Just one point. Just recently, the Atlantic Bank was for sale. Was there any other offer to purchase that bank?
Not
You see,
Atlantic Bank.
which one was it?
Scotia Bank.
Scotiabank. And there was no one else to make that offer. So we have to look at the reality of things. Are there people willing to come and invest in Belize? He's doing
Do
it.
you know?
We have to keep him at bay, and we have to structure it and make it that our political leaders that are responsible to the people are not so corrupt and
We cannot
and
keep him at bay when we
Mr.
have
Morrison,
compromised political
Mr.
people who are in
Morrison.
bed with him and
That's
who
what
he
you
has
wanna say.
control
Do you
over.
know? You
That's
know
the
about
difference.
antitrust regulations in the United States. Do you know why those things are in place, Mr. Morrison?
Is that a rhetorical question?
of course,
Because
No, no, I'm asking him a
of course, I
request
know
question.
why
everybody
they.
knows.
Do
I
you
know why
why
they have
those
the antitrust.
Do we,
But
do,
I
do we
cannot say
recall that
he's.
Belize was being sanctioned
No, I'm
because of
asking Mr.
Mr. Ashcroft's shenanigans?
In what regard? I'm not.
Do we,
aware
the members of the
that.
panel, recall that Mr.
Do you know
Ashcroft
why the
But
antitrust?
they don't wanna hear those
situation where
questions,
England was actually sanctioning us?
Greg, they don't want to hear those questions because you're not
You see?
supposed to interrupt the train of thought. But you're saying, do you remember Belize was being sanctioned? Why were they
To
being
show you
sanctioned?
why, to show you that it's not
Why?
just Mr. Mybil's statement.
Just
His
why?
statement
Why?
is based on
But that one
historical
simple question.
facts,
That one simple
issues,
question.
and I'm bringing up those facts
No,
You
because-
make
and
a
putting them out
statement.
to show
you
the
make-
relevance of his
You make
statement.
a statement, but you have no facts to support it with.
He
Why?
does.
How did it?
Come
why-
on, man.
But it
Come
wasn't
on.
it wasn't Ashcroft on its own. The whole money laundering and the whole thing of
No,
of-
that's completely besides the point.
so
that is
why
not my
then?
point.
Tell me why. Tell me why. Why was he
Mr.
being sanctioned?
Ashcroft was taking advantage of Belize's tax situation, and Belize's budget was falling short. And we were asking people, Taiwanese and the British and other people, to assist us to
Sanction, tell
supplement
me
our
why.
budget.
That's normal. But why?
And they
why
decided
was
to
he
sanction us
sanctioned?
because we were allowing this man to run away with free cheese, and then we need to go beg somebody else to help me get another cheese.
That not makes sense.
Because we have compromised leadership
Yes.
on both sides of the table.
We agree with that. We all know that.
And
we
it's having
do
an
have that.
impact, Mr. Brackett. It's having an impact on poverty It's having an impact
And
on
that
the
is
state
why I
line
was trying to ask
infrastructure. It's
to make
having
me
an
finish
impact
up the
on our
statement that I
ability to send
was
our
trying to
kids
make just
school.
now, which I was going to
It's having an
say
impact.
that enough we budget. PUP before they became government was clamoring and hollering that UDP they build loan infrastructure, loan concrete streets and roads, and we can't eat concrete streets and roads.
Exactly.
But when they got into power, they stopped the pantry program and they allocate $3.5 million in the budget for poverty alleviation. How
Excellent.
the hell you want to put $3.5 million to poverty alleviation when you just complain that you can't eat street and road on the previous government, and now you spend $170 million for infrastructure?
Hold on a second. I got in
How
trouble.
we can understand these things how they work?
I understand. I
Just with
understand
me.
that.
Make a point, man.
I'm,
You
I'm
have to
trying to
qualify.
understand the
Nobody can say
sanction.
nothing, man.
I did try to understand the sanction. That's all I want to understand. What United States sanction I believes
No,
for
I try to
because of
explain.
Ashcroft.
I
I
try to
understand all
explain.
that. Go ahead, sir.
Leonard, Mayor Muttley spoke to this issue. She basically said that the United States is picking on the small people to regulate in relation to financial transactions. And it's unfair.
Yes.
It is unfair because when you're regulating us, you're putting us in a position where foreign direct investment will not happen, or it will be greatly eroded. That was the gist of her argument.
Yes.
So don't regulate. If you are regulate across the board. You go regulate Russia, you go regulate China. Do not just implement on the small people. This was the gist of what
she said
Mayor
go
Muttley-
regulate. She said go regulate England because that's where all the money is. She said look at where all the money is
In
hiding.
fact, you tell them go regulate the banks and the people in here in the United States. There are certain states here in the United States that are getting a pass.
How does that tie in with Ashcroft being responsible for everything that's wrong in Belize?
I was trying to explain that part. And if you allow me, probably 1 minute out of the last 5 minutes or so, we have
1 minute.
wrap it up.
1 minute, but
Or maybe 30 seconds.
I know.
Give me 30.
I know. I hold
Okay,
my breath on that.
make a start talk then. Mr. Ashcroft, as a business person, I do not begrudge the man trying to maximize his return on his investment because that's what business is all about.
Okay.
First and foremost, that's the bottom. That's like
you don't have to qualify
the
everything,
foundation
man. Just
to my thought.
continue the train of thought.
The gentleman, when he bought, when he acquired
the bank,
BTL.
Oh, okay.
The BTL,
which the government at that time should not have allowed him to acquire it under the existing laws at that time.
Okay.
But they still went ahead and allowed him because I was one of the person who sold him some shares through a third party. I never knew that the third party was actually operating on his behalf at the time. Okay? So he acquired shares from a lot of small people like myself and eventually was able to control the entity and then turn around and wasn't giving people any of their profit. He was always declaring losses for the company, and that the company, even when the company made money, he was saying, okay, well, we can't give out no dividends this year. We're going to try to wait till next year because we got to reinvest back because of new technologies and a whole lot of, the bottom line is that the man was taking the dollars then that was coming into the country in his bank, American dollars, and shipping them out as part of the money laundering thing. We in Belize don't understand and know the intricacies of these things and the details that goes on behind the scene. But we have foreign people who are on top, whose responsibility is to be on top of these type of transactions and these games that are being played. When we were having a shortage of foreign currency in Belize, he was actually taking a lot of foreign currency and stockpiling it in other areas. And for that, Belize was actually being sanctioned because they were letting the man get away with not paying his taxes and with ripping us off and treating us like a. Okay.
Can I ask you a question though? Whose fault would that be? Would you say that was more Ashcroft's fault or the government's fault?
Both.
Corrupt people in
Ashcroft should not be that greedy because he knows exactly what the hell he's doing. And the government should be firm enough to look out for the interests of the people. How can you pay a man, like Mr. Marvin earlier said, one fell swoop, $70 million, when you can't come up with a couple $1 million to help the people, not just to come out of pandemic?
Yeah.
you know, and need food.
But
They don't got
whose
jobs.
fault
You
is
know,
that?
the economy is strangled, and you fight like hell to come up with the money to pay your PMaster, which
Yeah,
is what
but
UP is currently doing.
But whose
A lot of people
fault
don't
is
know
that?
that the man they get pay your money.
But whose
So
fault
what
is
In
you-
one
that?
way, UP they do the right thing.
Are you
They decide to
saying?
cancel the debt.
You see,
Are
you
you
see,
are you saying that he should refuse it then and say I
They-
don't want that?
No,
what
man.
you say?
The man, you don't see the man who take Bisenyo there in a court right now?
it's
Just take you repeat a
governance
court.
issue.
It's all many
It's a
times. The man is a
governance
litigator. The man, you know, he make money off of the business
who-
them anymore. No, he make more money off of litigation than anything else.
Yes.
Who is gonna represent him? Will it still be Courtney?
Same
Let
people
me,
and
Barrow, Courtney and Barrow.
Courtney and
Let me
Barrow.
say
Yeah,
this is
and
a
you
policy
want to tell me
failure.
that I should? Yeah. Huh?
Mr. Ashcroft is taking advantage of a policy failure. You guys will recall that when Mr. Ashcroft
No,
came into
I'm
this
not saying
country
no
in the
to that. I'm not-
mid-1980s,
Yeah.
when he came in the 1980s, it was ostensibly to invest in areas that were diversified economy.
Mhm.
We were anticipating that he would have invested in non-traditional areas such as
Exactly.
shrimp farming, such as citrus farming, banana, etc. Mr. Ashcroft basically said, you know what? I am not a risk taker that way. I will buy the bank,
Exactly.
and from the bank, what I will do, I will work on
Everybody
the
are
figures.
working with him.
And what Mr. Ashcroft has ended up with, Mr. Ashcroft ended up with Zabani
Uh-huh.
Citrus Orchard. He has
Everything.
ended up with Nova Shrimp Farm. He has ended up even the fishing
Almost everything.
cooperatives.
The
So
ports, the man control
from a
the ports.
strategic standpoint, that does not benefit the public because Mr. Ashcroft is the raider of the last ark. He's sucking out the resources of this country and he's putting it anywhere except in
Modern
Belize.
slavery, brother.
They
Modern
ran him
slavery.
out of. He's being run
See-
out of Turks and Caicos.
See, you
Economic
guys,
slavery.
you guys
So-
state some obvious things, but at
Obvious?
the end of the
If it's
day,
so obvious, why we politicians do not do something about it? Mr.
That's the point.
Mike?
That's my
They
point
are
that I
a part
wanted
of
to
the
make.
problem.
That's
Okay.
my
When
point.
Yeah,
Mr.
beholden.
Ashcroft collect, Mr. Courtney collect, do you know who funded the last PUP general election? And to
I
what
know.
tune?
I know.
Mr. G Mike, do you know?
We
Do I
have
know?
I know.
suspect.
I got the records on them, but
Yes, I'm
do
asking
you
that
know who has
question.
I
funded
got the
just
documents on
about
them
every election since 1993?
They
on
have
both
no-
sides, on
they
both
have
parties.
a
Don't
range
you
of
think we
funding.
know?
But
We
I will
know,
tell
Both
you
parties.
but you
that
said
Mr.
something
Mr. Cashcroft has funded
that
your
had nothing to
party
that adds
to the
nothing to your
tune
argument.
of
That
X
adds nothing
million
to your
dollars.
argument by you
And it's
calling
a
the man a
quid pro
certain
quo
name. Listen. The fact is that the man of
arrangement. Because
Those
when
are the
we started
behavior
election, Mr.
of
Ashcroft
a
said, I will
malignant
fire-
corporate
I will not
entity.
fire Scotiabank, and I will
All
not
right.
do what I need
All
to
right.
do with the
All
port
right.
authority.
All right. Michael Ashcroft is a businessman. Michael
He's a
Ashcroft
pariah.
makes as much money as he can
He's
while
a
paying
pariah.
the least amount of taxes that he can.
Yes.
If you have
No.
in place the pariah is your elected officials that allow him to
They
get
are the
away with it.
enablers. They are the
That's how I see it.
enablers.
Right. So what? It's a daw.
He's
Duh.
their
It's a ring
master.
of corruption.
Or is he a
Okay.
paymaster or is he a
He's
collector?
their master.
He's a
The money the
paymaster or a
salary they
collector.
get from government
Is
as
he a
government
paymaster?
employees.
Is he the paymaster or the collector, the chief collector? At the
He's the
front?
master.
both of
He
them.
pay
Ah.
them.
So he
He's
gives
both
us
of
They're
them.
money.
serving
So
him.
he gives.
He has-
So
And he's
he
been
he brings money to Belize.
Your
He brings money to
representative
Belize.
on a payroll.
He brings money to Belize on a payroll. Yes, he brings
Yes,
money
but
and
he
pays
takes out-
them.
There's a net effect.
What do they
that
do
he
with the
takes
money?
out more than he brings in. He
What
don't
do
bring
they
no
do with
out.
the money? So then, oh man, you have to get in the story straight, man. Because when you
What-
go
what-
from
what?
emotional,
Mr. G,
you're,
Mr. G.
you're more emotional and you're hate
No,
this
Mr.
man,
G.
and
gotta
therefore
know
you're
the
letting
topic
off. You're letting off the real
It's
guilty
not the
people
question.
by chasing the
Where-
scapegoat. You're chasing the scapegoat, and the real culprits are getting away.
No.
Yeah.
You don't
That-
even
that's how I see
follow.
it.
You think it's an either or situation. It's not an either or situation.
You don't.
There's a network.
No,
criminal crime.
no. But you don't
It's
cast any
organized
blame.
crime.
You
Organized
can't-
crime is not one
You
person.
cast any blame upon where
Organized crime has many moving
you
parts.
keep on the
But it
talk, so I
also
don't say
has-
nothing. You
it's
keep
also
on the talk, I don't want to hear what I say.
radical.
Keep the
Whether
talk,
somebody at the
keep the
top.
talk, and two we keep the talk, man, because you how long we could hold, keep this up.
But
And
Mr.
then you throw
Chairman,
up your hand as if you win some big victory. Drop the
I
mic.
don't-
You're
No,
not
I
making,
am saying
you're
the
not
point has
making
been
sense. You're making no sense, Judge.
to
You're
you.
not making sense.
But Mr. Chairman, you are not observing Robert's rule that I sent to you.
Oh, you want me to be the now we got on a different tangent now. Right. Make me the scapegoat now. You don't stop again on me. Listen,
You're not
gentlemen,
allowing me to
it's
finish my
it's
thought.
No.
it's about that time.
Marvin, that we are going to sir.
It's
We
Robert's
just
rule.
enjoy the
one or
conversation.
two,
Now we are
one or
going to
two, one or
now we
two
are put
shake
that
one
on the
another hand.
content.
One or two shake one another hand and accomplish whatever it was you're out for. I don't know what it is, but
Let's
it
see
was
why
not
then.
better understanding.
See
It
why
was
has
not
not
better
weighed in
understanding.
at all.
Man.
See why who win?
Anyway,
See, I got tired of you guys. I went to sleep.
listen, guys, we're into this again next week, Wednesday evening, same time. See, you know what your
G-Mac,
time
can I
zone
make a point?
permits? Yes, you may, but please not take all night.
I
You have
want
to
to
go
say,
sleep.
G-Mac, I want to say that at the beginning of the program, you spoke about the fact that we're not recruiting listeners perhaps as we might have anticipated. Well, I'll tell you that these conversations with us alone is very enriching for me. If we get people, it's great. But even if we don't, it's also very, very good.
You know, I was wondering.
Same here. Same here.
I was wondering because I think one of the popular program with is also on at 7:30 in the evening, and I was wondering how that affects people joining us. I think the one with Villanueva, yeah,
with Jules Vasquez.
Jules Vasquez, cut. Is that it? Yeah. So you know, maybe it's something we need to look at, or we need to build our own audience from wherever.
Yeah, and we can be better than they are, because I don't think.
Well, I mean, it took them a while to get to where they are, you know, so we shouldn't begrudge them any successes, you know.
Oh, no.
Go ahead, build for thing, you know.
I don't
just
even
be patient, you know.
I don't even know where they are, because I just happen to have a better audience, a better forum where they can reach more people. Where people have to log on and go on the internet, and that's why I believe we have to make access easier.
Yeah.
Let's be more listener
But we're dealing with substance here as compared to just the restore and back and forward and growing news and blood and all kind of stuff, you know, I mean, which is what that is all about mostly, you know.
But
and grab the attention because, you know,
yes,
people don't really understand and notice the seriousness about these things that we are discussing and how it affects them in their daily lives, you know.
But
sometimes they just can't afford the time.
But see, hold up. Let me point out something right here, because you see, Leonard, we are do that. You continue to add on and the end, and we could do that forever. Everybody could do that at the end of their conversation. Let us look back at this Toastmaster thing and this public speaking. The first thing I learned is public speaking: say what you have to say and shut up. So basically, that's what I have to say. Make we stop the tag on thing by the end of our conversation, man, and qualify every statement, because we could go on forever like that. George,
yes, but it's important to contextualize, sir.
I was just thinking that maybe CY or somebody, you know, I'm not technologically inclined, so I don't know that this is the best format to carry the show, and maybe we need something more reader friendly as the previous conversation. And I'm just saying this so that maybe we give it some thoughts when we're off air.
Yeah.
You know,
and also that we could all see the comments, I think, so that we could kind of respond to it.
That would be nice. That would be nice. I haven't, unless they're not commenting, but
no, you could check the comments on the phone. You need to have your phone with you. I don't think it come up on the screen like that, but you need to have the phone so you can see the whole thing, and you could see the comments once you log in. And so when you log in, I do link everybody. So everybody know your page, know you on the show. Because when I come on, I do add like your personal page, my page, everybody page.
Yes,
so everybody know that you personally is on. You know what I mean?
I see.
Well, see, one comment here by a fellow, Robert Lamb, who says, "Me not like politicians or politics. Don't even want to try to understand them. They politicians waste of time. They're crooked." I think we're basically in agreement with that.
Sammy commented too. Also, another guy commented, but it's on the I think on the YouTube aspect of the page.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Just to get it lined up, we gotta find a better way to get it lined up so you could interface while it's going on. You know?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm want touch also just a bit on the I got in a exchange with a fellow from over there because I felt that the entourage along with the prime minister, forget the speech he delivered to the UN, which is important, but the entourage at 20 people, maybe more, is a huge waste of money. I think
Well,
Well,
on
given
vacation, man.
well, I don't think so because
So,
remember he
junket.
also was meeting with the Secretary of States, and this is a good time for them to network with other country leaders that are here in the United States at that time. So I don't know. I don't know that those things
some of them
are
could come see we
junkets,
too, no? Some of them could come see we.
and that's nice because then they're gonna spend some dollars in Belize, right?
Yeah.
But I don't consider outreach and diplomatic movements waste of money, but we do need to keep it in check, and we do need to understand what we're
I would
getting
think
for
But
what
we not got money.
yeah.
they don't have to fly first class and they don't have to
Well,
stay at
that's
first
different.
high-end
Yeah.
hotels and eat the best thing on the menu without even looking at a budget. They should be
Uh,
Do
given
the
a
family
budget.
members come on government dime too?
All of them,
Well,
all of them. I
Okay.
tell you, and they
And we
have
not
a
got
lot.
money.
I think there are a lot of people over there who would be willing to open up their homes to house a few of these people. You maybe not Johnny Bishane because, like the fellow said, he needs full security. I don't know why,
Mhm.
because unless you do something out of
No,
the
I think
ordinary.
it's required. No, it's required when you come to the United States as
Yeah,
prime
well,
minister that you
well,
get. It's protocol
okay, and
that
they
you
pay
get.
for that.
well,
Well, they
well,
pay for they'll pay for the prime minister to have the security he needs
yeah.
and stuff. But some of the other lesser ministers, I don't think it's necessary.
Um,
But as
I,
a national leader, that's a requirement under U.S. law
I
or
don't
U.S.
really have a
practice.
problem with the cost per se. I mean, within boundaries. I think what we need to look at is the sort of return on investment. You guys went
Exactly.
away.
Yes.
You went away for a week.
Yeah.
You met with people. Let us see how
Yeah.
that translates into
Give us a report.
investment in the country.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
not only a report, but tell us what will happen as a consequence of that
Well, yeah.
visit.
Yeah.
From your
Yeah.
standpoint,
Yes.
do we look like we're having a $400 million
They don't want
investment in the
to even
Great
answer any
Basin?
questions. They don't
So,
want the reporters
Yeah.
or anybody
you
asking
know,
no
I
question
think you need to
for the
take the
public to
big
get aware
vision
of what.
of what the possibilities are.
When you were
Yes.
talking about the uncut program, they should be on uncut this week talking about stuff
Yeah.
like that. Because
Yes.
the people need to know, they deserve to
Yeah.
know. You're
Yes.
spending
Yes.
our money.
Yes.
I mean, so but anyway, fellas, it's been a pleasure.
G-Mike, you have been
yeah.
an excellent chairman.
You're just blowing smoke up my
No,
pipe.
you're
Listen,
doing a good. You're
I-
doing a good job at keeping
I
keeping
don't
the prison.
know.
Chairman.
In
Mr.
fact,
Chairman, sometimes you
thinking
gotta take the really good needling, man. You know,
I was
it's
thinking
a
about
positive.
that.
You know,
I-
look at it
that-
from the positive side.
That's not a problem. No worry about that. Not needling part at all. No jokers 101. But I was thinking this morning, I'm saying, I don't remember no ballot being cast, no proposal being presented. I just that's one title for me. I say, you the chairman. And,
Doing
and
a
I'm
good
saying,
enough job, sir.
I'm saying, I don't know.
Silence is consent.
Yeah,
I never say nothing.
you see what I'm
When they say
saying?
that, chairman.
Listen, next week, man, we'll meet again, right? Same time, same place. Have a nice
God
week,
bless.
fellas.
God bless always.
Bye.
Peace out.
Bye.